record the cloud, which means class has begun.
No,
Ooh, scary.
Pokit is now officially our mascot for this class.
You know what?
This Pokit.
My daughter and granddaughter's dog is named Coconut. She's brown and white, you know.
This one's white on the inside.
Yeah. Well, we didn't like take the dog apart. She just like brown and white.
I bet. Wow. You're alive after all these years.
Okay.
You want Pokit and coconut? Sure. Now I can get rid of the coconut.
All right. Well, I want to start. I told you guys I'd go through quiz 2, and this was kind of a, oh, how should I say? It's like pulling teeth. Took a long time for everybody to get their stuff in, and I think that to some extent we may have been talking past each other. Oh, we got some more contestants here.
Two people that are alive.
Austin, and let me get him here. And, oh, yeah. So, okay, good. I got my attendance correct. Okay, I've been telling you that this took a long time. I extended it a few days here and there, and so finally, after the original due date was September 26th, I'm finally getting to you to give you the feedback, and I have put some grades in, and you may have noticed, some of you anyway, that I had a grade in there and I may have bumped it up a little bit. I've been trying to be fair, and I've been trying to figure out what you guys know and what I need to teach you. And all of this is designed not for just this class, but for your career as a student. The kind of things that we'll talk about today are really issues that you need to know in your classes as you go through. And I understand too, and I think this is probably an issue, and you don't have to tell me if this shoe fits, but I think for some of you, this is your first semester in college because it's a 100 level course. And so you may not have seen this yet. But anyway, let's go through it. There were 4 parts to this quiz, and this is the first part. I cut and paste this right out of the assignment. An identification of the artwork that is the subject of your essay. Include all the relevant information such as title, size, media, date of creation, place of creation, and the museum where it could be found. And for all of you, everyone, you guys did this very well. I was real happy with that. And a lot of you gave me a lot more than just a simple identification. Some of you actually did some analysis on the work, talked about what the work meant, how you found it to be beautiful or meaningful, things like that. I'm good with that. See that you were really engaged with the artwork, and that primarily is a good step 1. And so I didn't say much. I didn't even get any examples. They were all pretty good. But part 2, library search results based on browsing through the university libraries, articles, full text, peer reviewed. And that's why we went through that in class. We went through the library demonstration and everything, list various interdisciplinary connections you found in your results. And what I wanted you to do was report on at least 10 different articles. And here's where things started to go south. First of all, not everybody had peer reviewed sources, period. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Not all peer reviewed, and how you guys reported these was really kind of across the board. And that's why that's going to be the basis of what I want to talk to you about today, because some of you did just fine. Some of you gave me hot links. Some of you gave me such poor information, I couldn't check your source. There wasn't enough there for me to figure out where this was. Carter.
I will say that some of those library sources aren't the greatest.
Well,
We're no library source, not the best.
oh, I think you probably don't know how to use it.
Well, I tried.
Well, and that's why we're going to talk today, because there are ways to get to what you need, and I got a couple of shortcuts up my sleeve too. But the articles, and first of all, I said it specifically peer review sources, and so I want to say Junior Scholastic. That's not a particularly peer reviewed. That's for kids and stuff. This here, and this was one I was trying to get to. Where is this? And I think that this is the title of the article, and face value, I think, is the publication. I could not find this. I kept getting all kinds of crazy things. The subjects here, this was all good, but there was no way I could figure this out. I don't have the title. I mean, excuse me, I don't have the title of the, how should I say, never mind. I don't have the publisher of anything. I don't have the author, so on. And so anyway, this is actually in a pretty good format. There's a couple of issues here, but that's the kind of stuff I was struggling with. Now, see, this is almost what we need. This is our bulletin, September 2018, issue 3, what pages they are, and the subject. This was not exactly how I would have formatted this, but I could get to this. I got enough information. I know what the art bulletin is, and then I'd have to go through there and try to figure out what article in that bulletin would be, because it's not telling me. See, and I'll show you something here. And so I'm going to go back. And this goes to what Carter was talking about. And so I pulled some of these slides out of other presentations that I gave about the library. And so I got journals, articles. You can do either way, but you search. This is my Khufu solar boat search. And there it is. And this is what I got, 889 hits. And then I have to do peer reviewed. So I filter that, I check that, and you see, there it is. And here are the results. And for some of you, and I talked to some of you about this, about that part 2, that you could actually cut and paste this. This would have been like real simple, and this is in the proper format. It's got the authors, it's got the title of the publication, and this is the Journal of Ancient Egyptian Interconnections, and then the month, the volume, what pages, and the publisher. So this, if you had cut and paste this into your sources, I could get to this. This would be like slam dunk. The kinds of things I was getting in a lot of the part 2 listing of the 10 sources, I could not track them down. And so look, they're the same. I mean, author, publication, date, volume, issue, and these are all from journals. So you see there's a similarity here. But this is formatted properly. And secondly, when I was talking about subjects, sometimes these will actually be right there on the search. And if you wanted to do that, cut and paste that, that would have been fine too. You wouldn't even have to dig through that. But at any rate, this is not a live search. This is just a screenshot. But I highlighted this because this is proper bibliographic format. And like I said earlier, this is something that you're going to need for the remainder of your education, whether you're in nursing, math, engineering, art, anything. This is how you format sources. And so those were ones, like I say, I couldn't get to this. I got parts of good things out of here, good subjects. That's an interesting title, but I don't know how to get to that. And Pulkit, you're here.
I'm really sorry, sir. I joined the wrong link, and then I was like, no one joined yet.
Well, you're here, and that's a good thing. I like that, and I'm going to give you credit for being a part of this class. And so there we go. Anyway, get back to, I could get to this, but I'm not sure that that's a peer-reviewed source. And so, you know, like I say, there were problems with this kind of stuff I couldn't get to, or it wasn't complete. And so anyway, documentation, that's the subject. That was the big gaping hole in this whole thing. You guys, for the most part, on paragraph 3, where I asked you to dig down and write about something you found interesting, you guys did really well there. But this, I hope I can get it. There we go. Citing sources. And I pull this up, Chicago Turabian documentation. There are a lot of style manuals, and they have proliferated in recent times. There used to be 3 main style manuals: APA, American Psychiatric Association, MLA, which was manual language arts. Well, anyway, it's MLA, and Chicago. And that's why this is got a slash. Chicago Turabian. Turabian is kind of a short version of Chicago. Chicago style manuals about this thick. You can get Turabian in a paperback. But it's the same thing, and I'm gonna show you this, this talks about citing sources in the text. You can do this. Some instructors will allow you to, or prefer that you place notes instead as endnotes on a separate page, titled notes at the end of the paper. Or you can do what you would say is in text citations, and that is you can put that little number right next to your source, and in Microsoft Word, it'll let you do that. You got to dig around on the menu, but you can put one, and then on the footnotes, all you really need after that is it would be like at the end of this sentence. See that one? And then you put a footnote on the bottom, and basically you can just put on your footnote or endnote the author and the page note. Simply put, but that's citing sources in the text, and that wasn't really what we were talking about with this. What I was wanting you to do was to put something like this together. And so here we go. Author, publication, publisher, date, page 8. Author, first name, last name, book title, publisher, just what I'm saying. This is the sequence. That's how you do that. And you see that the publication is in italics. That's a nice thing about word processors. That's an old term. But back in my day, we had to use a IBM Selectric, and we had to have a certain button to do italic. Anyway, that was like in the Stone Age. But at any rate, a lot of this stuff is made easy with Microsoft Word, a few others, but anyway. So anyway, single author, a later edition, and you see this is really right there, right where I have this. That's what the difference is. And I wanted to kind of point this out too. I got this from the Writing Center at the University of Wisconsin. That's where I went to school. That's where I went to graduate school. So like, just say it, they're legit. And I think that the single author later edition, single author reprinted, these are all different variations on a theme, but basically you got the author, last name first name last sometimes, first name, last name. There we go. First name, last name, Lenore Neville. First name, last name. Book by 2 authors. And so anyway, this is the same format that I was showing you in the library search. That's why you could scan this. It had author, publication, date, publisher, city, and page number. And so this is a link. And sometimes they'll have an organization as the author, the CIA. We shouldn't be looking at this. I think they got this from Mar-a-Lago. No, never mind. Just say Central Intelligence Agency and the CIA World Factor. So anyway, all of these variations, even from a newspaper article, an encyclopedia entry, this is how you do it. Sometimes that's a little difficult to get to. You got to dig around sometimes to find out who wrote that entry into, in this case, Encyclopedia Britannica, but it's knowledge that can be gotten. And why am I going on about this? And this, if you keep this link, it'll show you how you can get to the information that you'll need in your. And so who got in? That's 7. I didn't. Yeah, we did. So anyway, this PowerPoint is in the modules. If you ever need to reference this, we're good, you know, just take a look at it. It's really pretty simple. I got to move this down here so I can X this out. And what did I do? And let me see if I got the same share. That's it. We're good. All right. So that's documentation. That's how you need to put that information together. It's retrievable. And by the way, I picked this out of the prompt. This is your textbook. And this is a little different. This has last name, first name. That's a little different. You can do it either way. If I don't have a comma after the first word, I know it's first name, last name, or last name, first name. Bottom line, with this, I can get to this textbook in the library or anywhere else. I can go to Amazon and type this in. I can get to this. And so that's why I put this on. And this should be actually one of the first entries on anything that you do in this class, because we're basing the class on the textbook. Everything I show you is something that's in the text, almost everything. So anyway, I put that there, and this can serve as an example. But if you do that, if you format if you document your sources in this format, I'll be happy. I can get to it. I can find out. And like I say, it's pretty simple. You can even just cut and paste this off your library search. Bless you. And so anyway, I just screenshot this. This was a style manuals. And as I said, APA, Chicago MLA. And then look, there's all kinds of, and I don't have, and this would scroll down too, but this is a screenshot. But there are all kinds of style manuals, and they have variations. Like I said, first name, last name, or last name, first name, you know, but for the most part, they're similar. And if you document them and you are consistent with how you document your sources, we're good. But you got to document them, period. I need to be able to see what you have. And so, let's see, what did I have here? Oh, yeah, this was where I got this from. This was the research guides. And this, if you want to buy it, this is it. The 9th edition, I think, is maybe the, but look, this is it. Look at all those styles. Anyway. And I got to make sure. Yeah, you guys are seeing it. Good. And the other part I got to say, even though a lot of these I could not retrieve or figure out where this was coming from, or anything about whether or not it was a peer-reviewed source, what you guys did with the subjects, for the most part, some of you not so much, but many of you did really well on this too. And this is subject, this is obviously the Parthenon marbles, the Elgin marbles, and this is the subjects that were listed. Now, that's a lot more again than I asked for, but this, I like this. It shows that you're looking at the subjects covered. But mostly what you'd find is this, and this looks like something more like cut and paste off the library search. But you see subjects, and this is about, oh, let me remember here. I think this was about the immuno detection of non-falciparum malaria. Anyway, can't say it. But at any rate, it's medical diagnosis of mummies is what it is. And malaria diagnosis, history of medicine, bone and bones, anthropology, so on. These are the subjects. And here's some more. This is about Nefertiti and talking about CT scans, analytical characterization of historic stucco bust, just different kinds of studies. This was all good. This is kind of hard to sift through, but I could do this. I'm not looking for your sources. I want to know what the subjects are. And so part 3, and you guys mostly did pretty good with that. And I wanted to kind of put this little part in here. It's from the abstract or from the article, describe the nature of the interdisciplinary tools. And a couple of you hung up on that phrase. And one of them, here's actually right from someone. Well, I don't know what is meant by interdisciplinary tools, but I know what some of the articles went on to talk about Akhenaten's physical appearance being caused by a syndrome or disease. One source claimed it was Marfan syndrome. Anybody know what Marfan syndrome is? I thought this was really pretty cool because I knew what they said. They think that it's a genetic disorder and it causes people to grow in kind of strange ways, like they might have like real long arms or their body proportions are highly unusual. And there's a famous American that we believe had Marfan syndrome, Abraham Lincoln. And the people of his day in the photographs we had seen that he had like real long arms. He was extremely tall, taller than, he's always the tallest guy in the room. His cheeks were drawn, different kinds of things. Anyway, very deep medical knowledge. And you see, this is interdisciplinary tools. We're talking about a work of art, but we're looking at it through the lens of medicine. And so this is an interdisciplinary tool. That's how we understand the artwork. The artwork, as Carter would be quick to tell you, is beautiful.
Yes.
It is. And that's in part why we appreciate this. But if we want to know more, sometimes we have to branch out to different kinds of things. And like this one, we were talking about historic stucco bust. That is a study about what this bust of Nefertiti was actually made of. And so, iron corrosion, for your X-ray diffraction, Egypt masonry, all of this stuff can help understand. And for me, you may not agree with this, but I certainly believe it very much. And that is that art history, as we see it, as we're learning it, and especially when we're going back in time, it is probably one of the most interdisciplinary subjects you'll have in your education. And so, like, how many interdisciplinary issues have we covered so far? Well, you know, I go back to the cavemen and women, and we talk about the buffaloes and the horses and well, you know, we can talk about a lot of things, anthropology being the first and chief among them, but we also learn about their lifestyle and we kind of make some assumptions about their religion and other practices. As we move forward in time, there's more art and there's more secrets to unlock through the art, and we can know their political structure. We know who the kings are. We know what role religion plays. Sometimes we can tell just by the pictures what kind of agriculture they had. Sometimes we see them leading sheep and goats and cows and things like that. We know that they had livestock. We see them harvesting wheat in the pictures. In Egypt, we see that happening. We see pictures of Egyptians flooding their fields by putting canals, cutting canals that lead to the Nile River. And when the river goes up, the field goes underwater, they plant their crops and voila. Anyway, we can know a lot about how they live. And we can know almost everything through the art about their technology and engineering skills. And especially we throw in architecture into that. That is really enlightening because not only do we know that they know about the physics and how much weight columns would support and stuff like that. We also know what they knew about mathematical precision. We can go and retro analyze the Parthenon and figure out that they had used some highly sophisticated math to build that temple. So anyway, and so part 3, like I say, this was okay. I mean, you know, I didn't have a lot of things about that. That was, you guys write about it. You weren't formatting things quite well. And so anyway, here's the endnotes in a proper bibliographic format. And what I was hoping for on these endnotes was that you might just use the same cut and paste that you use for your 10 sources, take out the subjects and put this together. And again, see, I got my first entry right here, the textbook. But that's what I was kind of hoping for. Some didn't give me endnotes or anything. And I know that was kind of far down the page. So I'm kind of thinking that on the prompt, some people didn't scroll all the way down. And so I want to bring that up too. And it says, don't forget to list the textbook in the endnotes. That's just what I was saying a moment ago. Interdisciplinary tools, I said that. And so, can you guys put together a bibliography? I think so.
I thought I heard you too.
Well, I don't remember each person's. Some of you guys did actually quite nicely. As a matter of fact, if I want to go there, I have some excerpts from a good example. And I had to scrub the name off of it. And no, I didn't. Sorry. It didn't come through like that. Anyway, Mackenzie, I'm sorry. It just struck through. But at any rate, see, these are the articles peer reviewed. And so I could get to this. It wasn't exactly like I wanted it, but I could get to this. This is cool. And so these are I got the authors, I got the link, I got everything. And it's all from EBSCOhost, and I'm very confident that these were all peer reviewed. And so that is why I brought it. And see, we keep going. And then, like I said, the third paragraph, you guys all did really well with this. And then sources, like I said, endnotes, and hey, that looks like the format that I was talking about. So that's Mackenzie. I thought I had that copy scrubbed. You're gonna remain anonymous, but you did good work, and I'm glad you're not mad at me for sharing with the class. But Mackenzie had this first part of this class, or the second part, 150, last spring, right? So we went through that. And again, you guys, some of you will be taking this 150 and it will come in handy, let me tell you. So any questions about that? No, good. All right, and if you got questions about your own individual ones, please, I'm happy to talk with you about it. And so listing your sources, that's huge. And I think that to some extent, I probably thought you knew, but we're learning. We're learning together. So, want to pick up on Byzantium. And I told you on Wednesday about Justinian. Justinian as the world conqueror. I told you about the Nika riots in Constantinople, early 6th century, was almost going to overthrow the government. It was like, what was the date? January 13th, 535, maybe. Anyway, it was kind of like what happened on January 6th in this country, except on a bigger scale. They didn't just storm the Capitol. There was anarchy. And Justinian was blessed to have a very brave wife and a wise partner in Theodora. And she backed him up. She gave him advice, said, save the city. Don't give in. And so anyway, I was talking just a moment ago. I'll put this up here, I think, if I can. Got to make sure we got, yeah, we're good on the chair. Talking about different things, we can know a lot of things. Elephants as pack animals. We know that Christianity was a religion. Like I say, there's so much you can gather from the artwork. And so anyway, this is done in what you would call a heroic style. And there's Justinian, and he is the conqueror. And it's made out of ivory, so it's not that big. It's only like 1 foot high. by 10 inches, not that much bigger than a sheet of paper, which is 8.5 by 11. And so I talked to you guys about a number of things last week. And we talked about this. Justinian, Theodora, they went back, and I'll show you the map. They went and reconquered all of this. There were a lot of problems, especially in the Western Hemisphere. And it's called the Byzantine Empire because it was basically still out of Constantinople, Byzantium, Constantinople, Istanbul, Turkey. And so anyway, what happened is that they reclaimed a lot of this, and especially almost the entire Mediterranean Sea and much of Egypt. And I was thinking about this after we left. You know, there were a lot of tribes, and basically we had tribal governments in Europe, and one of is the kingdom of the Visigoths, the Franks, which becomes modern day France. One of the tribes that come down and they plunder Rome are the Vandals. Reason I thought it might be worth mentioning, talking about words that persist, we talk about vandalism today. That word has stuck for 1,500 years. Vandalism means that you come in and just tear everything up. And so bottom line, you know, but Theodora and Justinian, they go out and they reconquer. But I want to kind of talk about what they did here. Okay, this is San Vitale, another place where we have Theodora, Justinian refurbished. But what they wanted to do too, they wanted to build a big cathedral in Constantinople. And there was one, this is 532, 537. There was a church built on this site before this. It got burned down to the ground during the Nika riots. And so Justinian decided that he was going to build the most magnificent cathedral in the world, proclaiming this as the center of the new Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, as well as the center of Christianity. And so we see here, this is a dome that's right there. You'll see it. There it is. And he employed these two architects from Greece, and they designed this, and it took them a while. They had some starts and stops and things, and at one point the dome collapsed. They had to rebuild it, but here it is in all of its glory. This is a cutaway version. You can see it's huge, and this is what it looks like. Aerial view, Constantinople, Istanbul, Turkey, and it has this magnificent dome. What it has here on the sides were not original. I'll talk about that in a minute. This is the interior. And you can see people milling around in here. This was proclaimed World Heritage Site. And in the 1930s, it was open for tourists. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I forgot exactly when, but it's recently, government of Turkey closed it down. You can't go inside here. They turned it back into what it became in the 16th century, a mosque. And so this was for 1,000 years or so a Christian cathedral, and it was part of the Greek Orthodox version of Christianity. But this is before they closed it down. You can see it's magnificent, and I don't have any more. I thought I had more interior shots of this, but you see what they did with the inside of this is that there were a lot of Christian images on the walls, mosaics, and they took them down. They removed them or painted over them, and you can see these are quotations from the Quran in Arabic, and they're all around the upper perimeter. You can see up here, if I can kind of zoom in a little bit, there are some things, some images that were not removed. And this being one over here, but for the most part, the images were removed and it was converted to a mosque. And that's what I was talking about. These 4 towers, those are called minarets, and they exist on a mosque. And it's kind of part of the same architectural. It's part of many, almost every mosque has minarets. And secondly, is that there's been a lot of writing about this kind of architecture, which is not just Islamic, but it's kind of widespread across religions across the world. And that is that holy places and places of prayer have these architectural structures that seem to connect heaven to earth. And especially if you're standing like way down here, that actually looks like this building connects to heaven. Bottom line, like I said, not just Islamic, we see Gothic cathedrals where they keep getting higher and higher and higher. The idea of connecting earth with the heavens. It's been even pre-Christian, pre-Islamic. The story of the Tower of Babel, for example. People were building a structure, they thought, at least in biblical stories, that would connect earth to heaven, that you could build this all the way up. And God was not pleased and destroyed it. But all 3 of these religions are pretty much come out of the same roots, out of Judaism. Christianity comes out of Judaism. Islam comes out of Judaism and Christianity. They're all 3 monotheistic religions. They have different beliefs, but they have a lot of similar beliefs too. And I'll talk more about that when we talk about Islamic architecture, when we talk about the Dome on the Rock. But here, this is built in Justinian's time, became a mosque, 15th century, and it became pretty much the model for other mosques. And so soon after, Salman Conqueror, I forgot his name. Anyway, the Ottoman Turks took over. They were Islamic, and they built other mosques based on the Hagia Sophia. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you, what does Hagia Sophia mean? Anybody know? Holy knowledge. Knowledge is what the SOPH root word. Like philosopher, SOPH, knowledge, anyway. So anyway, this is built on the same model. And here it is. This is called the Blue Mosque, an Ottoman era, as I was talking about, Imperial Mosque in Istanbul, a functioning mosque. It attracts tourist visitors and so on. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and so on. I told you about Hagia Sophia and how that was closed down. There's something you almost have to know about this, and it's not particular to Islam. There are a lot of religions where you have to be a member, a believer in that religion to be able to go into their holy place, in this case, a mosque. But a lot of religions are like that. You can't go in unless you belong to that faith. And that's what happened with this when they closed it down. It's a functioning mosque, but it's not there as a museum anymore. We're going to talk, by the way, about that kind of tension a lot in the next few class periods, about that kind of give and take between Islam and Christianity and the split in the Christian church. It's going on for a long time. A lot of things happen. And so anyway, the Blue Mosque, this is another, the Suleiman Mosque, excuse me. Suleimanji, yeah, never mind. And so it's inaugurated date 1557. So you see another mosque based on the Christian architecture. We have this happen a lot in time. A lot of times churches are built on top of other churches, holy places. There are a lot of Christian churches that are built on the site of Roman and Greek temples. They knock down the temple. In some cases, when the building suits, they just change some of the characteristics to suit the religion. There were a couple of things that you can't see in this, but were changes as well. And where was I going with that? Okay, yeah, they had removed things like the baptistry. That was a Christian thing. And they installed this, which is a place where the imam, the holy person, would lead prayer. And I wanted to tell you too about why they removed the images. This is important. What is the second commandment? As I just mentioned, these religions are very connected. They share a lot of similarities. Mackenzie, I thought you were going to answer. Stretching. All right, I'll tell you. The second commandment, and it's worded a little differently in each of the religions, but it's basically about worshiping false idols, graven images, it said in some sources. And in Islam, they take that commandment very seriously. And so where the Christians are putting these images all over inside their cathedrals, inside their San Vitale. Well, we were just there. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, here we go. Christ, angels, Saint Vitalis, the bishop, all of these things. Islam, not done. You don't do that. Graven images are graven images, and they're forbidden. I don't know if you guys remember this. This was a core 5 years ago. There was an incident where some French magazine made mocking cartoons of Muhammad. Do you remember that? It was in Paris. Anyway, it very much upset a lot of people because nobody is supposed to make images of the prophet, period. And so this led to a lot of upset and some violence. And so anyway, they take it seriously, and so they don't. And so this is more the architecture, how they put together in these vaults, put a dome on top of that. And this is San Vitale, and that is where Theodora and Justinian, they built this. They had some of the finest artists involved. Another Christian church in Greece. And this is the 11th century, so it's 10 something. We see that dome, that kind of persists. And this is a San Vitale, as I was just saying, the throne of Maximus, who was the archbishop here at San Vitale. And here he is, Justinian, Bishop Maximus, Justinian. Mosaic. And you see this is kind of an interesting part of this imagery, but this is the Emperor Justinian, and he has his soldiers over here, and we have the holy people, the priest on this side. But he has this, and we believe it was kind of a collection basket. You know how if you've gone to church, and not just Catholic, but a lot of religions, they pass the basket around, you put some money in it, keep the church going. It's your donation. Some people call it tithing if you give it 10%, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, this is a collection basket, and he's offering this, and it's a symbol that even Justinian, the great emperor, is still subservient to the church. He's going to give the collection basket over to the church. And so, and as you can see, enough here of the religion and so on. And here's Theodora at San Vitale. And so they weren't about putting their own images in this church. And you can see Theodora, and again, giving offerings. She's actually holding this and giving this to the church. And so this is kind of the battle lines of Justinian. As I showed you the map in the beginning, this is basically how he and Theodora went through this, and they started here at Constantinople and kind of moved this way, that way. 554, they're going actually to southern Spain, etc. And so I have another thing I'm going to show you here. And this is another map. We have in about the same time we see this part of the world Islamic, which is what the green is. Sunni Islam. See, it's kind of hard to read. But we have this thing called the Great Schism, and that is that the Christian church divides into two parts. And it's kind of an extension of what was happening all along. We got Constantinople, we got Rome. And so we got the Vatican, and these folks are starting to, after 500-600 years, they're practicing Christianity in a whole different way than what they were in the East. And they call this Eastern Orthodox, which is Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox. And like I say, there is Islam, which is the third major religion in the 11th century. And what we have here in the purple is not quite defined, but this will be eventually Protestant, but that won't come for another 500 years with Martin. Yes.
Look at that little yellow speck.
This
Yes.
Judaism, that's Jerusalem, that's Israel. And there had always been, that's another thing too, about the history of all of this. Judaism centered in Jerusalem, that's right where that speck is, but the bottom line is that the Jewish people had kind of been moving around through the world, and especially the Western world. Jews were in Ukraine, in Russia, in Poland, in Germany, in France. And so they were really kind of, before 1948, they were basically a religion that didn't really have a country. But after the Holocaust, the world said, we'll make this new state here, Israel. And if you can see that way down there on the very little bottom, it says Judaism. But anyway, and that has been contested since 1948, because you can see there were other people there with the Jews, like Palestinians and so on. But I wanted to kind of finish this up by telling you about this. I got this link. I don't have enough time. Well, I guess I can open this. And this is the iconography of the Virgin Mary. And this website will show you icons of all various different Christian holy people, the saints, Jesus, angels, God the Father, the Holy Spirit, so on. But this is the iconography of the Virgin Mary. And after Justinian, we find that not only is the faith kind of put together, I told you about the Nicene Council in 325, where they organized, they put together all of the texts they could find, put together the New Testament, figured out or decided what was legit for a gospel, what was not. They basically, and I said the Nicene Creed, something that the Catholics still say at every mass, and it's what you needed to believe to be a Christian. And so as things went on, it says here, before the 5th century, portraits of Christ normally pictured him as an adult, flanked by saints, holding a book or a scroll. And I was talking to you guys last time about that. They had to make him wise, and if they put a beard on him, that made him look too old. So a scroll or a book kind of did two things. One is if he was reading, he was a scholar, first of all. The second was that the idea that Christ was prophesied. God would send his son. That was a promise made by God the Father, according to scripture. And so anyway, we have the development of a lot more. Frequently in the 6th century, an image type develops with a child held by his mother on her knee or more often on her lap. We get to development after Justinian or during Justinian's time of the iconography of the Virgin Mary. And she is always seated. She has the baby Jesus. They both have halos, but the Christ child will have the cross on the halo. And in this case, he's got a scroll. He's a baby. He can't read, but he knows it has been foretold that he will be born, period. That's what this is all about. And the other thing we see in this iconography, and I can't zoom in with this, that's too bad, is he's holding his hand like this. And that is a blessing. That is administering a blessing or a pardon of forgiveness, forgiving your sins. And so I have that part. I was in Hagia Sophia 9 months ago. Oh, it's so beautiful. And Medina, yes, 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 it is so beautiful. I'm glad you shared that with us. Yeah, she's right. It is everything. And so here we go. This is the 7th century. Here we go. Christ, and you can't see it's faded, but he has the cross. And they even have some issues about how to portray the baby too, because we have this kind of conflicting ideas. And the baby was supposed to be a baby, but this baby is supposed to, because this baby is the Son of God, he already knows what's going to happen to him. He's going to give his life to redeem our sins. This is right out of the catechism. And so a lot of times they stayed away from making his face look too babyish. And in some cases, you'll see the face looks like a grown-up. It's like a little person, and look at that head of hair. He's actually got a receding hairline. Guy's like 35, just say. But this is the iconography, and Madonna enthroned, typically it morphs into a throne that she's seated on, and she wears blue. Blue is the color of the Virgin Mary. And here we go. Virgin and child enthroned. Here's the throne. Here's the child. He's a little more grown up. Still probably a little ahead of his time. Blue. Hijab. Holy woman. And so that's where the iconography comes from Justinian's era. They standardized much of Christianity, and it held for like 500 years, and it finally split between Roman Catholic and Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Catholic. And both religions still thrive, and they fundamentally believe the same things. But here we go. There she is again. Vladimir Virgin. Can't tell this. She looks black here, but this is probably aging. And it probably was blue. Head covering, hijab. He's got a scroll here in his hand. Christ as a human. So what happens at this time too, and this is from Egypt, they finally settled on giving Christ a beard. We don't see that much of a young man holding the sheep over his shoulder, Christ, a good shepherd. Mostly Christ that was prophesied. And what did I say about this gesture? We see the baby Christ doing it. We see the adult Christ doing it. A blessing, forgiveness, a pardon. I'm here to redeem your sins. That's what that means. And so, any questions before I let you go? All right. You know what we'll do? We'll meet again on Wednesday. See you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everything.
You too.
You.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Tell me. Okay. Yeah, I gotta check this off.